Welcome back. A federal judge is standing in the way of the Trump administration's efforts to cancel billions of dollars in climate grants. Now, that ruling came down yesterday, and it said the EPA didn't provide sufficient evidence that grants awarded under the Biden administration were examples of waste and fraud. And here's a live look at the White House this morning. It is iron cuts right now for a major EPA research institution. Documents shared with CBS News show more than 1,000 employees could be let go. The Trump administration is also working to roll back dozens of environmental regulations. Now, last night on the Daily Report, my colleague Lindsay Reiser asked a former EPA official if she has concerns about all of this.
We do run the risk of backsliding. You highlighted some of the conditions of the environment from back in the 60s, and that took a long time to clean up. Yes, it would take some time to revert back to those conditions, but removing the kind of scientific expertise that we have and that we need, we do run the risk of backsliding, and those effects are not going to be immediate, but people's health will be at risk. The environment will be at risk.
Now, take a look at this polling from Gallup. Back in 2000, 67% of people believe the environment should be prioritized over economic growth. Those numbers fluctuated over the years, but you see right there in 2024, that number was down to 52%. And the people who support economic growth over the environment saw a trend in the other direction. In 2000, 28% of people felt the economy is more important than the environment, and that number jumped to 38% last year. Let's bring in Benji Backer now. He's the founder and CEO of Nature is Nonpartisan. Backer also wrote a book called The Conservative Environmentalist, and he's joining us now live from Belfort, South Dakota. Great to have you with us, Benji. Tell us about this nonprofit you're launching and your specific goal, because you seem to suggest that conservatives can be pro-environment as well.
Yeah, well, good morning from South Dakota. It's a beautiful day to launch our organization, and thanks for having me on. Really, I believe firsthand that, the environment should not be a partisan issue. You look at American history, and the best solutions for our environment came from Republicans working with Democrats to get things done in the environment. I think we're all yearning for some normalcy right now. Things are incredibly polarizing and hectic at the national level. And there's one issue that our politicians should be able to put above partisan politics, and that's protecting and conserving America's beauty and our environment. Unfortunately, the issue got caught up in culture wars in the early 2000s, like you're seeing. It's just gone on a backslide since then. And we have an obligation to show our leaders that Americans across the spectrum demand action on the environment, regardless of who wins an election. We need an environmental organization that represents both sides of the aisle and actually pushes for action regardless of who wins. That's what we're creating at Nature is Nonpartisan. I've teamed up with a lot of high-profile liberals and conservatives to launch this organization completely even across the political spectrum, because that's the sort of environmental organization that can actually make a long-lasting impact.
Well, Benji, help me understand what that means then, because Republicans and conservatives that I know, they love to hunt, they love to hike, get out on the water, they love to spend time in the environment, yet this Republican administration is rolling back regulations. So how do you reconcile your politics with your push to save the environment?
Well, look, conservatives care about the environment and are just as connected to the environment as much as a liberal person is. I think we can all, talk about conservatives we know who are connected to the environment. They've lost their way in terms of being connected to the environmental movement. The environmental movement itself is partially to blame for that, though. It's supported liberal policies and liberal politicians. The environment should be about the environment, not about politics. And I think both sides have done a really bad job of playing that game. And now we're seeing that play out at the national level, where the left has put in a bunch of regulations and a bunch of environmental policies that were done in a fairly partisan way, and now the Republicans are undoing it. My statement as a conservative to this administration is that by being anti-environment and rolling things back only and not proposing your own agenda that works across the aisle, you're actually out of touch with Americans. Americans want this across the spectrum. The polling shows that, the data shows that. I can tell you from being here in South Dakota, in a small town that is very conservative, they want this administration to prioritize the environment, and they feel like this back and forth of just undoing everything the left has done is not helpful for the environment, but also not helpful for their community. But at the same time, I do want to just make a point of it that they also feel left behind by the current environmental movement, which has association with the left of center. They only endorse left of center candidates. We need a truly nonpartisan environmental organization, because it's not just the right that's failing on this issue. It's both sides.
So in our last few seconds, where is the common ground that you're inviting Republicans to join you on when it comes to policy?
Americans right now want clean air, they want clean water, they want public lands to be protected, they want wildlife and biodiversity conservation, they want sustainable agriculture, they want forest management. These are very common sense policy areas that our politicians need to work across the aisle on. And if they don't, Americans should and can hold them accountable. There's no nonpartisan environmental organization to do that until today.
Well, Benji Backer, best of luck to you on your endeavor. We all need the environment. We appreciate you joining us from South Dakota.